The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was never a quiet place. It was built like a cathedral that floated in the orbit of a blue-white star, its walls glowing with soft light, and its air filled with voices of dozens of civilizations. Each voice carried its own rhythm, some like thunder, some like whispers, and some like metallic chimes that echoed off the polished floor. To anyone visiting for the first time, it was overwhelming, but to the council members it was routine. They had been debating, arguing, and laughing in this chamber for centuries. That day, however, there was something different. A group of humans dressed in simple dark suits stood near the center of the hall. Compared to the tall, scaled beings of the Dravic Empire, or the silver-skinned envoys of the Calith Union, the humans looked ordinary, almost fragile. But their voices were steady as they spoke. "We ask again," the lead delegate said. His tone was calm but carried a weight. "Remove the restrictions placed on our colonies. Let Earth trade freely. Stop treating us as if we are children in this galaxy." The chamber responded with laughter, not cruel but dismissive. A ripple of chuckles echoed among the representatives. Some shook their heads. Others waved their hands as if brushing away the demand like dust. One of the elders, a being whose translucent skin revealed glowing veins beneath, leaned forward and said, "Humans, you are new among us. Your ships are slow, your fleets are small, and your weapons are outdated. You cannot bargain with the council as if you are equals." The words were polite, but the meaning was sharp. Another delegate, a creature with 6 eyes arranged in a perfect circle, clicked its mandibles together and added, "Every young race believes it deserves more, and every young race learns that patience is the true path. Do not test our patience." The human delegation stood quietly. Their expressions didn't shift, though deep inside anger simmered. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, knowing exactly what the response would be. Finally, the lead human spoke again, slowly and clearly. "We are not here to beg. We are here to warn. If you continue to strangle us with your embargoes and blockades, if you keep us trapped in one corner of space, we will act. We will not accept chains no matter how polished they are." The chamber burst into noise. Some laughed openly now. Others whispered to their neighbors, amused by what they saw as human arrogance. The council leader, a towering figure draped in a cloak of shifting colors, raised a hand to restore order. "Earth," the leader said, voice calm but dismissive. "Your words are strong, but we see through them. You want to frighten us with the illusion of power. You want us to believe you have hidden strength. But the council has observed your fleets. We know your numbers. You are bluffing. You cannot enforce your threats. Do not mistake patience for weakness. The peace we maintain here is older than your species' first cities. Do not endanger it." The words stung, but the humans kept their expression still. They did not argue further. Instead, the lead delegate simply nodded and replied, "Then remember what we said today. Do not claim we stayed silent." With that, the human group turned and left the chamber. Their footsteps echoed against the shining floor until they vanished from sight. The hall buzzed with laughter again, and soon the council returned to its endless debates. Treaties, trade agreements, disputes between empires that stretched across hundreds of star systems. To them, the warning was just another piece of theater in the long history of galactic politics. What they didn't see were the faces of the humans once they were beyond the chamber's doors. Their calm masks fell away, replaced by grim determination. Their eyes were sharp and their silence heavy. Back on Earth, news of the council's rejection spread quickly. The common people were not surprised. For years they had felt the hand of the council pressing down. Taxes on trade, restrictions on exploration, ships turned away from borders with no explanation. Colonists living on harsh worlds far from Earth struggled under shortages caused by blockades. Supplies were delayed for months, sometimes years, because the council decided humanity was not ready for wider access. At first, people had been patient. They believed time would earn respect. But patience was slowly replaced with frustration, and frustration hardened into anger. Entire communities began to whisper the same thought: "We are being caged." The council had underestimated one thing: humans had never been good at staying caged. In the weeks after the council meeting, humanity's leaders gathered in secret. The same halls where they once debated policies about trade and farming now echoed with far heavier discussions. Voices were raised, fists slammed on tables, and silence often followed when the weight of their decisions became too clear. Some argued for caution. "We are not ready," one said. "If we fight, we will lose. The council will crush us. Others leaned forward with fire in their eyes. If we do nothing, we will never be free. They will keep us in chains until we forget what freedom feels like. The debate stretched long into the nights. Yet beneath all the arguments, there was a quiet truth. Humanity had already chosen its path. The warning given to the council was not empty. Preparations had been underway for years, hidden from the eyes of those who thought humans were too weak to matter. Meanwhile, ordinary people lived their lives, unaware of the storm building behind closed doors. Families farmed their land on distant colonies. Children played under the glow of two suns. Miners dug deep into asteroids, their laughter echoing through the metal halls of stations. But in every corner of human space, there was also tension. Cargo ships stopped at borders. Soldiers stationed on watchtowers staring out at the stars, waiting. They didn't know it yet, but history had already begun to turn. Back in the council chamber, the dismissal of Earth's warning became nothing more than a memory, a footnote in the endless flow of galactic politics. Delegates spoke of trade routes, disputed territories, and cultural exchanges. Few gave humans a second thought. To them, humanity was a child pretending to stand tall among giants. But children grow, and sometimes children learn to strike harder than anyone expects. That was how it began. Humanity spoke and the galaxy laughed. They thought it was a bluff, a hollow threat thrown out of desperation. But beneath the calm words, humanity's heart beat with something the council had long forgotten, an unwillingness to bow, and soon, that unwillingness would shake the galaxy. When the council laughed at the human delegation, they thought the matter was finished. But on the journey back, the delegates said almost nothing. They sat in silence inside the ship, watching the stars drift past the windows. No one needed to speak, because every one of them knew the same thing. The galaxy would never give Earth respect. Humanity would have to take it. Far from the shining halls of the council, preparations had already begun years ago. Deep underground on Earth, in hidden bunkers built under mountains, secret workshops hummed with quiet energy. Engineers worked day and night, building things no one outside their circle was allowed to see. These weren't just ships or weapons. They were tools designed to hit where the council was most vulnerable, not on the battlefield, but in the places they believed no one would dare to touch. The council had power because they controlled the star lanes. These lanes were like highways through space, invisible tunnels that allowed ships to travel faster than light without being torn apart. Every great empire depended on them. The lanes carried food, medicine, minerals, and technology across thousands of light years. Without them, fleets couldn't move quickly. Trade collapsed, and whole civilizations could be left stranded. And that was where humanity had been working in silence. Scientists had studied pieces of alien wreckage, fragments of lost ships that had once been found drifting near the edges of human space. From those broken pieces, they had learned secrets no one thought they could understand. They discovered ways to disrupt the flow of energy in the star lanes, ways to twist the pathways and make them collapse like broken bridges. At first, no one believed it could work, but in test after test, small lanes were shut down, cut off like doors suddenly slammed shut. What would happen if these techniques were used on the larger lanes that carried fleets and supplies? The answer was simple: chaos. Back on Earth, the public still lived their lives without knowing the full truth. Children went to schools, workers filled factories. Families gathered around dinners, unaware that their world was secretly arming itself not with battleships, but with something far more dangerous: the power to choke the galaxy itself. Not everyone agreed on the path being taken. Some leaders argued in quiet meetings, saying the risk was too great. If the council discovered what humanity was planning, retaliation would be swift and merciless. Earth could be crushed before their weapons were ever used. But others argued with a fire in their voices. They spoke of colonists dying from shortages because shipments were blocked, of families waiting years for supplies because the council decided humans should learn patience. They asked one question again and again: how long should we suffer before we act? The answer became clearer every day. Waiting had brought nothing but chains. Action, no matter the risk, was the only path left. Meanwhile, in the colonies, people whispered about changes they didn't understand. Cargo ships that once carried ore or crops now traveled empty, their holds filled instead with sealed containers guarded by armed soldiers. Mining stations worked double shifts, extracting strange minerals not listed on any trade reports. Pilots were called away from their routes and told to report to hidden bases, where they trained on ships that had been stripped and rebuilt with new, untested technology. Those who asked too many questions were met with silence. Those who pressed harder were quietly moved aside. Humanity had decided secrecy was survival. It was a strange time. On the surface, life continued as normal. Cities lit up at night, markets bustled, music filled the air, and laughter still echoed in parks and streets. But beneath that normal life, the pulse of preparation was steady and strong. Every factory, every research lab, every small colony felt the weight of something coming. And while the people lived in the rhythm of ordinary days, the leaders carried a heavier burden. They knew the warning had been dismissed. They knew the galaxy would not listen. And so they placed their hope in the work being done in the shadows. A few voices in the council had suspected something. After the human delegation left, some representatives had whispered among themselves. One said, "They are too calm. They speak like a people who already have teeth hidden in their smile." Another disagreed, laughing it off. "They are desperate, nothing more. Let them talk. They cannot touch the foundations of peace." And so the majority ignored the suspicion. They did not see the ships being built in hidden hangars under the oceans. They did not hear the drills echoing in the caverns of Mars, where scientists prepared devices designed to disrupt the very heart of the galaxy's highways. They did not know that humanity had no intention of striking with fleets or armies. No, humanity had chosen a different battlefield, the invisible lines that tied the galaxy together. This choice did not come from arrogance. It came from desperation, from years of being told to wait, to obey, to accept. And it came from something deeper, something older than the stars, humanity's unwillingness to bow forever. Among the people, there were rumors. Some spoke of great changes coming, of whispers carried from soldiers returning from hidden posts. Others dismissed it as fantasy. After all, what could Earth possibly do against civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia? But the rumors never stopped. They grew stronger, like sparks that promised a fire waiting to ignite. The council, far away in their shining citadel, believed they had silenced the humans by ignoring them. But every day that passed, every hour spent in secret workshops and shadowed bases, was another step closer to a storm they could not see. There was no shouting, no fanfare, no parades. Humanity prepared quietly, steadily, patiently, while the galaxy laughed. Earth sharpened its blade, and when the moment came, it would not be a battle between fleets. It would be something far more shocking, something the Council had never imagined from a species they thought too young to matter. The preparations continued in silence, but the silence was not weakness. It was the silence of a hunter waiting in the dark, watching, ready to strike when the prey least expected. That was how humanity spent its days after the Council's laughter. While the galaxy dismissed them, Earth built in secret. While the Council trusted in peace, humanity prepared for its collapse. The stage was set, and though no one outside the hidden rooms and underground halls could see it, history was already being rewritten. The galaxy believed humans were bluffing. They believed humans had no power to change anything, and that belief would cost them dearly. The blockade came quietly at first. The Council did not announce it with threats or speeches. Their fleet simply appeared at the edges of human colonies, rows of ships that glowed with cold light, standing in silence like walls in the sky. They did not fire a single shot. They did not even speak. They just waited, blocking the trade lanes, watching every vessel that tried to leave or enter. At first, people thought it would not last. "It's only a show of power," some said. "They want to scare us. They'll leave soon." But days turned into weeks, and the fleet stayed. Cargo ships filled with food were turned away. Medical supplies sat sealed in warehouses, unable to reach the colonies that needed them. Children grew sick on distant worlds because the medicine never arrived. Families counted the last of their rations, hoping for shipments that never came. On Earth, people watched the reports with anger. They saw images of Council patrols stopping human ships, forcing them to turn back like criminals. They saw colonies begging for supplies, and they saw the Council ignore their cries. The laughter in the Council chamber was now replaced with silence on human streets. Silent anger, the kind that waits, the kind that does not forgive. And then one day, something changed. A star lane went dark. It was a small lane, not one of the great highways, but important enough. Ships entered, but they never came out. Navigation systems reported errors, and the lane itself collapsed, like a bridge crumbling into the sea. Panic spread across nearby systems. Fleets rerouted, merchants shouted, and the council scrambled to explain. But no explanation came. A week later, another lane failed. This one larger, connecting whole clusters of colonies. Again, ships vanished, routes closed, and chaos spread. Food shipments rotted in ports. Fleets sat idle, unable to move. Civilizations that once trusted the council's perfect order now faced shortages they had never known before. At first, the council believed it was natural decay. They told their people not to worry. These things happen, they said. We will repair them. But the failures continued, each one targeted, each one carefully chosen. And then came the message. It was not long or loud. It was simple, carried across the old radio waves that every species could hear, a voice that spoke in plain words. You were warned. Leave our colonies. Remove your blockades, or more will fall. The voice did not shout. It did not threaten with fire or rage. It was calm, almost quiet, but in its calmness it carried more weight than any fleet. For the first time, the council realized what had happened. Humanity had struck. Not with battleships or armies, but with the lanes themselves, the lifelines of the galaxy. The shock was immediate. Representatives who had once laughed at the humans now shouted in panic. They demanded answers. How could such a young race with so little power touch the lanes? How could they disrupt what had stood for millennia? No one had an answer. In the colonies, the news spread like wildfire. People cheered in crowded streets, not because the danger was over, but because for the first time they felt hope. Humanity had shown its strength. Humanity had not bowed, but in the great cities of the council, fear spread. Merchants saw their wealth vanish overnight as trade collapsed. Fleets were stranded, unable to move without the lanes, and for the first time in centuries, small skirmishes broke out between neighbors. Systems that once depended on smooth trade now fought over scraps. The peace the council had built began to crack, not with explosions or armies, but with hunger, silence, and confusion. The council tried to respond. They sent teams to repair the lanes, to rebuild the bridges of light that tied the galaxy together. But every time they fixed one, another failed somewhere else. It was like chasing shadows. The humans had planned well. Inside the hidden bunkers of Earth, the architects of this plan worked in silence. They did not celebrate, not yet. They knew the danger had only begun. The council would not forgive this strike. Retaliation would come. But for now, humanity had shown it was not bluffing. For now, the galaxy knew their warning had been real. Ordinary people, far from the secret labs and war rooms, felt the change in their own lives. Traders who had once been turned away now slipped through routes left unguarded, as council fleets rushed to respond to lane failures elsewhere. Colonists who had once begged for supplies now saw the council's fleets pull back in fear of more sabotage. For the first time, humanity breathed without chains pressing against their throats. But freedom came with a price. Council broadcasts filled the stars with words of anger. Humanity has attacked peace itself, they declared. They are criminals, destroyers of order. They endanger every species in the galaxy. To some it was true. To others it was a lie. And to many it was simply proof that the humans were not as weak as they once seemed. In the council chambers, silence replaced laughter. Delegates who once smiled at the humans' warning now spoke with tight voices, their pride wounded, their authority shaken. They had believed humanity was bluffing, and now the galaxy trembled because they were wrong. The spark had been lit. The calm surface of peace was broken. Hunger, shortages, and fear spread across systems that had once trusted in the council's perfect order. Humanity had pulled a thread, and the entire fabric of galactic peace was beginning to unravel. But for the humans themselves, this was only the beginning. They knew they could not stop now. Once you show your hand, there is no turning back. The council would fight harder, demand revenge, and tighten its grip. And humanity would need to strike again, harder than before, to make sure their voice could not be ignored. The world did not yet understand what was coming. To some it looked like small disruptions, temporary failures, problems that could be fixed. But to those who watched closely, it was clear. The galaxy was shifting. The balance that had lasted for centuries was crumbling, all because one species refused to bow. The first failures of the star lanes had been shocking, but when the failures continued, when whole regions of space were cut off from each other, the galaxy felt something it had not felt in centuries: fear. The Council's great promise had always been peace, not because they were saints or protectors, but because they controlled the threads that tied every civilization together. Trade flowed, food moved, medicines arrived, fleets patrolled. As long as the lanes remained open, order was safe. People trusted in that order so deeply that most had never even imagined a galaxy without it. But now, with lanes collapsing one after another, the illusion shattered. At first, people waited for the Council to fix it. They believed their leaders would repair the problem quickly. But days turned into weeks, and still the lanes stayed closed. Ships sat in orbit, unable to leave. Merchants watched their fortunes vanish as goods spoiled in warehouses. Families sent messages to loved ones in distant systems and received no reply, because the lanes that carried those signals no longer worked. The Council declared it was sabotage, an attack on peace. They named humanity as the culprit, but many civilizations were too busy with their own problems to listen. Hunger spread in places that had always depended on imported food. Machines failed in colonies that relied on spare parts brought from far away. Tempers flared. Skirmishes broke out over supplies. In some systems, neighbors who had lived peacefully for generations suddenly turned on one another. A small world might attack its neighbor simply because its people were starving. Fleets that once patrolled against pirates now turned into raiders themselves. The peace that had lasted so long cracked like glass under a hammer, and through all of it, the humans watched. On Earth, the mood had shifted. Where there was once despair, now there was a strange sense of pride mixed with fear. People saw the Council fleets retreat from the colonies, afraid of being stranded without supply lines. They saw the mighty Council hesitate for the first time in history. For ordinary families, this was proof that their warnings had not been lies. Humanity was no longer just a voice shouting into the void. They had forced the galaxy to listen, but along with pride came unease. No one knew how far the Council would go in retaliation. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said fleets were gathering on the edge of human space, ready to strike. Others whispered that entire civilizations had begun to collapse into chaos, that whole worlds were burning because the lanes were gone. People asked the same question again and again. Had humanity gone too far? In the hidden chambers where decisions were made, the leaders argued late into the night. Some believed the plan had already succeeded. The Council had pulled back. The colonies were free from immediate pressure. Why not stop now before the galaxy's anger grew too great? But others argued fiercely. If they stopped, the Council would simply rebuild and return with greater force. Humanity would be crushed unless they pushed further, unless they proved they were not to be underestimated again. The debate went on, but the truth was already clear. The galaxy could not return to what it had been. The damage had been done. The peace was gone. Even if humanity stopped that day, even if every lane reopened tomorrow, the trust that had held the Council's order together had been shattered. Across the stars, civilizations looked at each other with suspicion. They had seen how fragile their lifelines really were. They had seen how quickly the Council's great promise of peace could collapse. And in that moment of weakness, some no longer feared the Council the way they once did. If humans could stand against them, why not others? The Council scrambled to hold everything together. Speeches were given, fleets were sent, relief ships were promised, but no words could erase the reality spreading through the galaxy. The Council was not invincible. In the streets of human cities, people gathered around old radios and screens, listening as the message was repeated again and again. It was short, almost cold, but it echoed everywhere. We warned you. Those 3 words became a symbol. Children whispered them on playgrounds. Workers painted them on walls. Soldiers repeated them like a vow. The Council had believed humanity was bluffing. Now the galaxy itself bore witness to the price of that mistake. But peace once broken does not heal easily. In distant systems, chaos spread faster than anyone had imagined. Without the lanes, some colonies were cut off for months. Their leaders grew desperate. Ships were seized by force. Alliances crumbled. Small wars broke out in places that had been quiet for centuries. The Council tried to hide these cracks, but the truth leaked out. Images of riots, of empty markets, of fleets turning their guns on each other spread across the stars. And humanity knew. This was their doing. For some, It was a burden. They saw the suffering and felt guilt. They had wanted freedom, not galactic collapse. For others, it was a necessary cost. Better their chaos than our chains, some whispered. The debate spread from homes to schools to marketplaces. Every person felt the weight of what had been unleashed, but whatever they felt, it was too late to turn back. The Council's peace was gone. Humanity had ruined it, and the galaxy would never forget. In the Council chambers, the mood had changed entirely. Where once there had been laughter, now there was fear. Delegates no longer mocked the humans. Instead, they argued among themselves. Some demanded vengeance, calling for fleets to crush Earth and end the threat. Others warned that such a war would only make things worse, that the Council was too weak now to fight without risking total collapse. And in the middle of it all, one truth hung heavy in the air. Humanity had forced the galaxy to take them seriously. No one laughed at them anymore. That was how the peace ended. Not with fire raining from the sky, not with fleets clashing in great battles, but with silence. Silence in the star lanes. Silence in the ports. Silence where there had once been trade, laughter, and life. The galaxy had been woven together like a great web, and humanity had cut the threads. The web was falling apart, and no one knew how to put it back together again. For the first time in centuries, the Council was afraid. And for the first time in history, humanity was free, but freedom came at a cost. And that cost was written across the stars in hunger, anger, and fear. The Council had believed humans were bluffing. They had been wrong, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Council had never been so divided. The Great Hall, once filled with smooth voices and careful debates, now echoed with shouting. Delegates pointed at one another, accusing, demanding, panicking. Some wanted war. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to abandon the Council altogether. For centuries, their unity had been their pride. But now cracks ran through every word they spoke. The humans had done it. They had pulled the thread that held the fabric together, and the fabric was falling apart. At first, many believed the Council would strike back immediately, that fleets would gather and Earth would burn. But the fleets were stranded. They could not move across the broken lanes, and the ones that could move were already busy putting down riots, feeding starving worlds, or protecting borders from neighbors turned hostile. The Council was powerful, yes, but for the first time its power was scattered, weakened, and stretched thin. And humanity knew it. On Earth, there was no celebration, no great parades. People were proud, yes, but they were also afraid. They knew the Council would never forget what had been done. Retaliation was only a matter of time. In every home, in every city, people asked the same question: what will come next? But even in their fear, there was something else, a sense of dignity that had never been there before. They had not bowed. They had not given up. For the first time, they were treated as more than children, more than weaklings asking for scraps. The galaxy now looked at them differently, even if that look was mixed with anger and fear. The colonies felt it strongest. For years they had lived under the Council's shadow, begging for food and medicine while fleets blocked their skies. Now those same fleets had pulled back. The colonies were still struggling, but they were no longer choking under the Council's hand. People whispered that humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by asking politely, but by forcing the galaxy to recognize them. The Council could not ignore it. They called for emergency talks, summoning representatives from every major civilization. The chamber was quieter this time, tense and heavy. Gone was the laughter. Gone was the mocking tone. When the humans walked into the hall, all eyes followed them. No one laughed. No one waved them away. The lead human spoke with the same calm voice as before, but this time the room listened. "We warned you." "You did not listen, and now your peace is broken. We do not come here to apologize. We come here to tell you the truth. We will not be caged again. If you want peace, treat us as equals. If you want stability, recognize our freedom. We will not ask again." The words hung in the air like a blade. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others clenched their fists, their pride burning. But none could deny the reality. The humans had already proved their will. No speech, no threat, no fleet could erase what had happened. The Council's power was broken. The galaxy knew it. Arguments followed, of course. Some demanded punishment. Others warned against it. Some said humanity should be destroyed as an example. But the ones who whispered caution were louder this time. They feared what might happen if the humans struck again. Could they risk losing more lanes? Could they risk total collapse? In the end, the council made a choice they would have never considered before. They agreed to treat Earth not as a junior member, not as a race to be guided and restrained, but as a sovereign power. It was not an easy choice. It burned their pride, but they had no other path. When the decision was announced, the chamber was silent. The humans gave no thanks, no smiles. They simply nodded, as if they had expected nothing less. Outside the chamber, across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. Some celebrated, some cursed, but everyone knew the truth. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had forced the council to bend. On Earth, the reaction was mixed. There was relief, yes, relief that the immediate danger of destruction was gone. But there was also grief for what had been lost. The galaxy's peace had shattered. Worlds had suffered. Families had been torn apart. And though humanity had gained freedom, they knew the scars of this struggle would last for generations. But alongside the grief came pride. For the first time, humans walked among the stars without bowing their heads. For the first time, their children could grow up knowing that their people were not seen as weak or powerless. They had earned their place not through mercy but through strength. The council never fully recovered. Their unity had been broken, their authority questioned. Other civilizations, watching closely, began to whisper of independence. If the humans could stand against the council, why not others? Slowly, the galaxy shifted, moving toward a future where no single power could control everyone. And history remembered the moment, not as a great war, not as a battle filled with fire and destruction, but as the day one species refused to be ignored. Generations later, children would learn the story in simple words. The council believed humans were bluffing, until the humans ruined their peace. For the people who had lived it, it was not just a story, it was their life. They remembered the hunger, the fear, the anger, and the silence of the lanes. They remembered the council's laughter, and they remembered the moment that laughter stopped. And in every memory, in every retelling, there was the same truth. The galaxy would never laugh at humanity again. That is how it ended. Humanity stood in the council's chamber, not as beggars, not as children, but as equals. The peace was broken, the galaxy was changed, but the humans were free. And sometimes freedom is worth the storm it brings.